Traders, how are you? We have a lot of interesting things this week on the recap of what happened in the markets. They may have found the Planet 9, Nibiru. We used to have volcanoes activating in South America as well. And we even have fertilizer prices skyrocketing, which means even higher food prices. Let's get started. So overall for the week, the markets mostly mixed in the United States, even though the NASDAQ hit a record high. The overall kind of overarching, I keep thinking in Spanish, I always do the Spanish videos first. The overarching idea of what people were concerned with, that's the word I was looking for, is the whole idea behind the lockdowns in Europe again. And I'll get into that in just a moment, but Austria is implementing a lockdown, and we even have Germany also, which is talking about doing one. So the markets, like I mentioned, in the US were mixed. Overseas markets, the European markets were mostly mixed as well. The biggest winner there, it looks like, was Istanbul. Again, Istanbul being an emerging market. I mentioned them a lot because they move. There's a lot more volatility, even though the Turkish lira, which is the money there in Turkey, hit a record low because they're doing the same thing that essentially the United States is doing, which is just printing money, right? LATAM and Latin America mostly lower as well. Canada going up 0.72%. Africa and the Middle East mostly mixed, with Egypt being the biggest loser there. And then we have Asia and Australia, the far east. We have, it looks like the Taiwan, Taiwan, the biggest winner there at 1.71%. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news. The central bank, not a whole lot of news in the Bitcoin space this week, outside of the fact that it took a really big dive, not for Bitcoin percentage-wise. You know, if the markets went down by 10%, stocks, people would be freaking out. But obviously with Bitcoin, it's not really that big of a move. So it went down from the record high. It hit about 58,500, just over that mark. Overall for the week, what happened with Bitcoin is we have a lot of people that are taking profits. And in addition to that, we have China again talking about how they're going to ban again Bitcoin and the mining. So obviously those two things mostly affected Bitcoin this week. Singapore's central bank and financial regulator warned sharp speculative swings in the crypto space, potentially advising of the risks of retail investors. Retail investors are basically people like you and me that don't have billions of dollars. And so obviously a central bank would say that because they, obviously that's the competition for central banks, right? Other than that, in commodities, fertilizer, the cost of fertilizer is exploding 6 times higher. And one of the things that I always try to do these videos to make you guys understand the things that are coming, right? We talked about the potential blackouts, whether it's purposefully or not, right? That conspiracy theory we're going to put over here, but we can actually see that happening with situations like the coal mining, right? In the United States, if you remember about 2 weeks ago, I talked about how the coal in the United States is sold already through 2022 to 2023. Colombia, the 12th largest miner of coal in the world, they're having problems mining the coal because of all the rains, the severe rains that they're getting. And coal prices have surged to a 12-year high. And if you guys remember, China was shutting down factories and stopping them from making things, which we all buy stuff from China, right? Due to the fact that they're having electricity problems, and partly because of the fact that Chinese government has a ceiling that they can price the electricity at. So obviously, if they can't charge more than this much, but coal is going through the roof in price, they have to they're not going to generate electricity at a loss, right? So keep that in mind. Coal did hit 12-year high. That's continuing to cut the pockets of a lot of Americans, soaring electricity bills. Remember that, if I remember the number correctly in my head, and the world average is about 30 to 40% coal generation. So even if we just have 10% of that cutting off, or a company not being able to buy it because it's too expensive, whatever the case may be, that's going to cause quite a chaos throughout the entire electrical grid worldwide. Air pollution has gotten so bad in New Delhi that the India Supreme Court is calling for a citywide lockdown. So now we're not having just lockdowns for the pandemic. We're having lockdowns because of the climate that's coming. So keep that in mind as well. You guys should definitely look for a job, something you can do basically on the internet. Trading is a great thing. You guys know that we teach people at the Day Trading Academy Axie Infinity, which is this NFT game based on blockchain. They pay in crypto, but for me, I'm not interested in the crypto. I prefer more things like silver, but obviously they pay in crypto. You just convert it back into dollars or euros or whatever money you guys have. But look to have, start your side hustle soon, because soon it's going to be even harder to make money. So you want to lay those foundations now. Oil giant Royal Dutch Shell is announcing a major overhaul of its legal and tax structure. They're leaving the Netherlands due to, let's say, political reasons and moving their corporate headquarters to England. They're also going to remove the Dutch from their name. So they should be called Royal Shell now instead of Royal Dutch Shell. And they're moving after their office being there in the Netherlands for over hundreds of years. And this is what I find really, really funny, right? Because it's okay for Norway to make trillions of dollars off of oil, but you can't do that now. We gotta worry about the climate. Now we gotta worry about the environment. But it's okay when we did it. But when you do it, no, can't do that. See how they are, right? Other than that, oil for the week, mostly negative. U.S. crude is down 6.83%. International, which is Brent, went down over 4%. And remember, if we have lockdowns again, right? Let's put 2 and 2 together, which I always try to tell you guys, pay attention to what they do, not what they say, right? And so if we have lockdowns or rumors of lockdowns going on, that is going to impede the quote-unquote economic recovery. People using less oil, obviously oil goes down. Also, it has to do with the dollar getting stronger. But inflation pressures in the United States and also worldwide are helping gold and silver, even though this week gold went down by 1.08%. Meanwhile, silver went down about 3.08%. And in financial and banking news, inflation in the Eurozone is at a 13-year high at a 4.1% year over year, more than 2 times the target of the central bank in the European Union. The CPI index, which is the consumer price index, a very important number, because remember that the majority of not necessarily advanced economies, but industrialized economies, the majority of the economy is consumer spending. In the United States, for example, it's almost 70%, 70. This is why when they look to stimulate the economy, what do? They inject, they literally just print the money, right? I'm going to tell you guys about the $2 trillion bill that just passed in the House. But essentially, they just inject money into the economy. The stock market goes crazy, real estate prices go crazy, asset prices go berserk, and then people see their retirement funds are going up, so they feel a little richer. So then they go out and spend money, and that helps to move the economy. What they don't tell you is at the end of the road, that debt has to be paid for eventually, right? And that's the problem that we're having now. They've done studies now that when you reach about 90% of debt to GDP ratio, meaning the amount of debt of a country has compared to the size of their economy, that's what the GDP means. The amount of debt that you inject, for every dollar that you inject to the economy, you get less than $1 in return. So it really doesn't make sense, because the amount of money, you literally have to keep putting more and more money in. And that's kind of the situation that we're in right now in the United States. One of the things I forgot to tell you, sorry I have the hat. It might be informal for some of you, but unfortunately I was busy all day. Wanted to make sure I got the video out to the team. And so, we'll fix the hair and make it all fancy next week. Other than that, U.S. Dems on Friday passed the enormous social and climate spending bill, 220 to 213 vote, $2 trillion. And remember, the United States is already at 130% the GDP. Now it moves on to the Senate. Remember that the Senate is divided 50-50 between Democrats and the Republicans. So even if one Democrat says no go, they're going to have a problem passing it. Political news, President Biden passed power briefly to Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday as he went down for a surgery, a colonoscopy, making her the first woman to hold presidential powers in the United States in history. Economic news, data released in the 3rd largest economy in the world, which is Japan. The growth rate in Japan is actually going down by quite a bit, by over 3%, which is a lot lower than what was expected. And one of the things I want to ask you guys as well, if you want to leave it there in the comments, I generally try to summarize a lot of these numbers, because I think a lot of times, point this, percentage that, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So let me know if you guys want to know the exact number, or if I do it like I've been doing it the last few months, where it's just kind of a general understanding of what the market is doing. And then if there's something special, I'll throw out the number. So let me know about that in the comments. China's economy is also slowing. Their growth rate is back to what it was in the 1990s. This has to do with the real estate market. If you guys remember, we had Evergrande, which is the largest real estate developer in China, almost go bankrupt and collapse when the Chinese stepped in and bailed it out. It does seem like the Chinese government, though, is willing to pay this price to not have the economy grow as fast, because it seems like they're just putting a tight grip on that real estate sector. And remember that the real estate sector in China is over 30% of the economy. Now, this obviously, when we think about, especially in the United States, we think about the other countries and how that doesn't really affect us, right? But remember that China is the second largest economy in the world now. There was an article out that I read saying that now China as a nation is richer than the United States. So we're definitely moving in that direction. So if the second largest economy in the world isn't moving as fast as it used to, you know, if they cough, we're going to catch a cold, right? So keep that in mind. Eurozone GDP went to 2.2% in Q3, which was in line with expectations. In corporate news, Dollar Tree went up by over 14%, which was a new record high after a billionaire investor, Mantle Ridge, invested $1.8 billion in stock. This is due to the fact that they want to help move up the stock price, because Dollar Tree has only gone up by 45% in the last 5 years, while the S&P has gone up about 116%. Alibaba, their competition, which is called JD, has bucked the downward trend in a lot of the Chinese tech sector. They went up 9.1% on Friday, and Apple hit a new record high at $160.55 following a report that they're accelerating their efforts to launch a self-driving vehicle. So everybody's getting into the game now. Trade news. A atmospheric river, think of it like a hurricane, but in the air. They literally the amount of flooding is like 100-year, 1,000-year flood that they had in Canada, which cut off their access to the Vancouver port, which is on the Pacific side, the left side. Over 2,000 tons of grain are stuck in transit. So now let's put 2 and 2 together again, right? Fertilizer prices going up by 6 times. Now one of the largest exporter in the world of grains, Canada, has no access to their port to export their grains. You see how we're starting to put all these things together, right? So prepare yourself, because the amount of prices that we're going to see an increase in food is going to explode. And there's a chart I'll give to the team to put into the video. The amount of increase in food prices is astronomical, especially in 2021. You can see that on the red line there on the chart. If you guys are listening on the podcast, which you guys can search for Day Trading Academy, much higher than all the previous years. Other than that, technology, Tesla Inc., the CEO, Elon Musk, stated in a reply to a tweet that they're getting their servers fixed after there was an outage when somebody tweeted to him that he couldn't get into his car from his remote control because Tesla had a server. Funny story. I can always get into my car, even though it's gas powered. Just throwing that out there. One of the things that I find unusual, though, is why wouldn't he be able to access the car, right? It's like, hopefully they're not centralizing the access to the servers. Hopefully it was just a matter of connecting his app to the car. But either way, they're fixing that issue for all you guys that have Teslas. In investment news on Tuesday, Germany's energy regulator suspended the certification process for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline due to the fact that it advised the consortium that manages or is planning to manage the pipeline that they need to register a business in Germany to follow German law. Other than that, Blue Prism is 9% higher as well after disclosing that they're taking over a huge technological company there in the UK. And a group of U.S. states filed an amended complaint against Google for breaking anti-competitive laws or antitrust laws, and also using coercive tactics to boost their already dominant advertising business. They're facing a lot of lawsuits, and they also lost an appeal this week for a fine that they received from the European Union antitrust decision, which was $2.8 billion. In international events, Belarus is now threatening to cut off its transit to gas to the European Union, which is already in an energy crisis. If you guys don't know what's going on there, essentially they had presidential elections in Belarus. The president at the moment is supported by Russia, but Europe is supposedly saying that there wasn't a fair election, there was a lot of fraud. And so they sanctioned Belarus. They won't allow Belarus airlines to fly in European airspace. So allegedly, now Belarus is literally weaponizing migrants on the Polish border, and Poland is having absolutely none of it. They're not letting anybody in. So that's kind of the the geopolitical situation there in Poland. Tensions continue to escalate with Russia's alleged buildup of their military in the Ukraine. NATO is saying that they're going to prepare to defend the sovereignty of Ukraine, just like they did in Crimea. If you guys don't know what happened in Crimea, it's an island essentially that was part of Ukraine. And during the Obama administration, Russia just went in and took it, and nobody did anything about it. Other than that, EU is considering a joint military force of 5,000 troops by 2025 to be able to intervene in a range of crises and not rely so much on the United States. I have a feeling they know that the United States is broke and won't be able to help them in the future. And other than that, the Australian government, as I spoke to you guys earlier, is going to have a lockdown for unvaccinated people starting on Monday, which is going to last 10 days. It's going to be a max of 20 days, just like it was 15 days to slow the spread. And Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg, I probably butchered that, so I'm sorry, is now saying that their percentage of people that are, I don't want to say because I don't want to get censored, had the thing in their arm, is at just 65%, and Germany also is warning about more lockdowns. But don't worry, it's only 10 days to slow the spread. Unusual facts: NASA and stargazers in North America and northeast Russia are going to see a once in a 580-year lunar eclipse, which is a blood moon. They're going to be able to see it for 6 hours from Thursday night to Friday morning, so hopefully some of you guys saw that. And in the UK and England, they're going to avoid and outlaw all plastic waste, which means plastic plates and cutlery. They use 1.1 billion single-use plates a year and over 4 billion single-use cutlery, and only 10% of that is recycled, unfortunately. So they're gonna ban it outright to be able to go ahead and try and reduce the waste. And in the natural disasters, I told you guys about the huge flooding in the port of Vancouver in Canada. It's definitely gonna be one of the things outside of the problems that we have with the inflation, right? Because obviously with the money printing, with every bill, whenever you see news items where the United States is passing $1 trillion this or passing a bill for another $1 trillion that means that the prices of everything is going to get worse, just so you know. So on top of that, inflation, on top of the supply disruptions that we have, now we even have natural disasters that are affecting the situation. And this is what I mentioned to you guys. I believe I started talking about this last year. The next 10 years are going to be very challenging. A lot of natural disasters, economic problems. Obviously, if people go hungry, it's not they're not going to just sit around like they did in the World Depression and wait in a line for bread and soup. We have a completely different society today. And Nevado del Ruiz, which is a significant volcano in Colombia, 36 years ago, it exploded and killed about 25,000 people, starting to wake up again as well, starting to shoot ash into the air. If you guys remember, we talked about how some of the people that I follow talked about how the chains of volcanoes in South America are going to start activating again, which does seem like that's starting to happen. And Planet 9, apparently, supposedly, they found this new planet line. In the Bible, they call it Wormwood. NASA calls it Planet X. I believe they call it Planet X, or Planet 9. One of the things that's really interesting is that there were some astronomers, going down the rabbit hole on YouTube. There was an astronomer that noticing that asteroids have a very unusual orbit or elliptical orbit, and the only way they could explain that type of orbit is if there was another planet on the solar system. There's even Sumerian tablets, Sumeria being one of the oldest civilizations that we know of, supposedly. And there's a tablet, if you guys want to look this up on Google, that shows 9 planets, not 8. Which is something that's really interesting. So there's even an African tribe that knew about a star system that we didn't know about when they already knew about it, which is actually pretty interesting as well. It's called the Dogon tribe. So a lot of interesting things out there. And Bill Gates, Bill Gates talked about how a lot of governments should start preparing germ games for a possible pandemic of the smallpox. And the FBI and the CDC were able to just discover, oh my God, they magically discovered vials of smallpox in a research lab in Pennsylvania. So prepare yourself because we're probably going to have another pandemic soon. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button. It helps a lot. We'll see you next week. Bye.